When your city grows, the service has to grow.
The city's unveiled its 2025 budget outlining millions of dollars for city services and a property tax hike of 6.9%. Good afternoon. The mayor had previously stated that another property tax hike was likely, and the city works to find ways to fund its programs.
The budget also includes money to hire more first responders, expand food programs, and add more apartment inspectors. CTV's Natalie Johnson is at City Hall this afternoon and joins us now with more on the budget. Natalie.
Hi, Michelle. This, of course, comes on the heels of a historically high property tax increase last year. Now it looks like once again Torontonians are going to be asked to pay more for 2025. The city budget unveiled this morning by the mayor and her budget chief, and a 6.9% property tax increase is what is on the table for the year ahead. Let's break that down. It is a 5.4% property tax increase on the residential side. You add to that the 1.5% city building fund increase. That's a dedicated levy for capital on housing and transit, and what you come up with is nearly 7% increase, which for the average Toronto homeowner works out to about $268 more per year moving forward if approved by council. As for where this money goes, you're looking at a 5.8% increase in TTC service hours and a fare freeze, school food programs for 8,000 more students, 100 traffic agents, 276 additional emergency services positions, extended library hours, renter protections, housing initiatives, and more. Here is more from the mayor this morning.
Our city is growing quite dramatically, 125,000 people in 1 year alone. When there are more people arriving, more people are going to call for support and help. 911, 211. That's why we have these wonderful people here supporting them, right? When your city grows, the service has to grow. If not, you call and, you wait a long time. That's not safe. And you take TTC. I see TTC workers here. We need to increase the number of services because there are more people taking public transit.
It's significant at a time when the city has never been more expensive to live in. The mayor is introducing a budget that has tripled the rate of inflation. And I think a lot of folks right now are concerned about their grocery bill. They're concerned about putting fuel in the tank. We've got incoming tariffs with the new Trump administration. So things in Canada could get a lot more expensive. The only thing that we can control at City Hall is the biggest bill that you pay every year, which is your property tax bill. And yet this year, the mayor comes forward with one that has tripled the rate of inflation. I think that's going to be concerning for a lot of Torontonians.
Now, the opening budget pressure for the city for 2025 is $1.2 billion. The good news, according to top city officials, is that is down from $1.8 billion last year. The mayor's team saying that targeted investments are needed to build the city that Torontonians want. The mayor's critics saying Torontonians simply cannot afford it. Reporting live at City Hall, I'm Natalie Johnson. Michelle, back to you.
Thank you, Natalie. And still to come on CTV News at noon, firefighters in California are bracing for Santa Ana winds to whip up the wildfires, which have already devastated Los Angeles County. We'll have the latest on the firefighting still ahead.
A pedestrian has been taken to hospital with serious but non-life-threatening injuries after being struck by a vehicle in Brampton. It happened just before 5:45 a.m. near Mississauga Road and Edgware Road. Peel police say the driver involved remained at the scene. Now, so far, there's been no word on whether charges will be laid, and the circumstances remain under investigation. A 9-year-old child is dead following a rollover on the QEW in Oakville. OPP say a pickup truck rolled over in the westbound lanes near Bronte around 1 a.m. 3 people were inside the vehicle at the time. The driver, a 38-year-old man, suffered serious injuries while the child was ejected from the vehicle and later pronounced dead in hospital. A second passenger, a 28-year-old, was not hurt.
They were coming back from a fishing trip, so it might have been a long drive. So if there's fatigue involved with the driver and they fall asleep, these things can happen. This is why we urge people to take a break, pull over at a rest stop, a gas station, whatever you can do to take a little break before continuing driving.
Police are investigating whether the occupants of the vehicle were wearing seat belts at the time of the rollover. The victims are from Hamilton.
A high-ranking Toronto police officer has been temporarily demoted after being found guilty of 2 professional misconduct charges.
Inspector Joyce Scherzer was found guilty of discreditable conduct and neglect of duty in connection with an incident in 2022. CTV's Raheem Ladani has been following this story and joins us live with more details. Raheem.
Nathan and Michelle, the defense counsel for Toronto Police Inspector Joyce Scherzer was asking for a penalty in the range of a forfeiture of 5 days. The prosecution was looking for a 1-year rank demotion. In the end, the tribunal decided that it is going to be a 9-month rank demotion from inspector to staff sergeant for Scherzer. This decision was handed down by retired OPP Superintendent Lisa Taylor, who said police officers, particularly high-ranking officers, are held to a higher standard, and members of the public would be shocked by Scherzer's 1st, 2022. It was on that day Scherzer arranged for an officer from her division to respond to the scene of a crash involving her nephew after a pickup truck crashed into a utility pole on Lakeshore Boulevard. The crash happened outside of her division, and Scherzer herself also attended the scene. A tribunal previously heard that Scherzer also agreed for the investigating officer to turn off his body-worn camera to have a private conversation. In today's decision, it was noted that Scherzer's actions did not involve malice or corruption. They could, though, be perceived as preferential treatment. An aggravating factor was also that Scherzer never acknowledged her actions were inappropriate. Now working in her favor is Scherzer's more than 3 decades of employment with the TPS and the 73 letters of support the tribunal received from colleagues, including from former chiefs Raymer and Saunders. However, it was also found that Scherzer's actions caused reputational damage to the police force. Now, after Scherzer's 9-month demotion, she will return back to her original ranking. Reporting live, I'm Raheem Ladani. I'll send it back to you.
Arguments began today ahead of the trial of 4 teenage girls accused in a deadly stabbing attack. The teens are part of a group police say swarmed and fatally stabbed 59-year-old Kenneth Lee in December of 2022. He was living in the city's shelter system at the time. 8 girls between 13 and 16 years old were arrested in connection with Lee's death. All were charged with second-degree murder, with 4 pleading guilty to lesser charges of manslaughter or assault. A judge-only trial is set for this month for 2 girls on charges of second-degree murder. The other 2 girls are set to be tried by a judge and jury May 5th. One is facing a charge of second-degree murder, while the other is charged with manslaughter. Toronto police have launched a new initiative aimed at addressing what it calls a rise in criminality and violence linked to the tow truck industry.
The service says Project Dodger will include a dedicated team focused on improving safety for tow truck operators and the public. Our Mike Walker has been following this story. He joins us live with the latest. Mike.
Well, Michelle, Nathan, Toronto police say the violence in the tow truck industry has already surged this year, representing 70% of all shooting incidents in the city. As part of Project Dodger, officers will be focusing on the criminal activities of what they call a few bad actors in the industry. Toronto police report 7 out of 10 shooting and firearm discharge incidents this year have been linked to the tow truck industry. It's believed to be connected to the ongoing turf wars. Among those incidents, 3 shootings over a 24-hour period in Scarborough last week that involved tow truck drivers. As part of Project Dodger, plainclothes and uniform officers will be deployed to specific areas of the city to deter violence and ensure compliance with industry regulations. Now, this follows a similar task force last summer that resulted in 6 people arrested and more than 180 charges laid in connection to 13 tow truck related shooting incidents. Here's more from police.
We're looking at intelligence-led information. We're looking at immediate safety and reactions and proactive work from a uniform point of view, as well as a plainclothes point of view, where people won't know that there's officers in the area who can respond quickly or be proactive, and as well putting that all together with our shooting teams who are investigating these violent crimes.
These are blatant, highly violent incidents, and it has a ripple effect that not only affects the intended probably targets, but the communities at large. And, this has us not only shaking our heads, we're rolling our sleeves up on this one. You're going to see an increased presence of uniform members.
As for these latest 3 shooting incidents in Scarborough, police say their investigations still ongoing and are yet to say if these incidents are connected. Reporting live, I'm Mike Walker. Michelle, back to you.
Thank you, Mike. Rumors about an early provincial election call continue to swirl at Queen's Park.
It comes as new polling shows a double-digit lead for the Progressive Conservatives over the Ontario Liberals. CTV's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris joins us live now with more details. Siobhan.
Well, the polling from Liaison Strategy shows a narrowing of the gap between the Liberals and the out-in-front Progressive Conservatives. In the survey done last week, PCs show up at 33% support, the Liberals are at 23%, and the NDP at 16%. Now, Ontarians aren't supposed to go to the polls until June 2026, but those rumors of an early election have been swirling for months, and they have been getting louder the last little while. Last week, we heard from Doug Ford that he doesn't believe that he has a mandate to unleash potentially billions of dollars in economic spending should Donald Trump follow through on his tariff threat. Today, we heard from the opposition leaders calling any early election call unnecessary.
I'm here to call his bluff a little bit and say, you know what? You got the mandate. You're the Premier of Ontario. You got a majority government. It is your job to fight like hell for every single job in the province of Ontario. And I'm here to say, I'll work with you on that. You don't need to go to the polls. We got this.
The Premier didn't seek a mandate when he spent billions of dollars on pre-election goodies, whether they were pre-election checks, whether they were preparing the ground at Ontario Place, whether they were expediting the sale of booze and wine. He doesn't need a new mandate now. He has a majority government. He can do whatever he needs to do in the next year and a half. Right now, people need stability and they need certainty.
Both Stiles and Crombie have suggested that MPPs should be back at Queen's Park working on this tariff threat and how to respond to it. At this moment, MPPs aren't supposed to return to Queen's Park until the beginning of March. Whether or not that changes, we don't know. We will hear from the Premier next hour. Reporting live from Queen's Park, I'm Siobhan Morris. Nathan, back to you.
All right, thank you, Siobhan. The Don Valley Parkway is set to be impacted by construction over the next few months. One northbound lane on the DVP has been closed from the Eastern Avenue on-ramp to Queen Street East. The lane restriction is part of the city's rehabilitation project for 4 bridges in the area. It will remain in effect until the spring.
And a heads up for subway riders. There will be early closures on a stretch of Line 1 this week. Service between St. Clair and Finch will end at 11 p.m. each night until Friday. Crews are performing track work in the area. Shuttle buses will be running instead. The TTC says regular service resumes each morning around 6 a.m.
We've got more news in a moment, but first, here's a live look at the city this afternoon. We did have some mixed precipitation this morning, but temperatures remain mild. It's cloudy, seasonal, but colder air is moving back in, so be ready for it. Lindsay Morrison is here with a look at the current conditions. The weekend was pretty good.
It was great, Nathan, but that colder air, you're right, it's returning as early as this afternoon. In fact, our temperature is going to fall as the day goes on. Not only that, but we will continue to hold on to the chance of flurries. You can see them widespread here on the satellite and radar. I do want to mention, once again, we have lake effect snow impacting the Bruce Peninsula, areas around Parry Sound and Muskoka. Anywhere from 30 to 50 centimeters of snow could fall in some of these locations by about tomorrow afternoon at a rate of about 3 to 5 centimeters per hour. It's also windy. These are the sustained winds coming out of the west, gusting close to 60 kilometers per hour right now here in Toronto. So no wonder we're feeling a bit of a wind chill once again. It feels into the minus double digits again in London, Hamilton, as well as at Pearson Airport. And again, that temperature is going to be chilly as we make our way into tonight and tomorrow morning. We'll detail what you need to know for the week ahead coming up. For now, Nathan, I'll send it back to you.
All right. Thank you, Lindsay. The field is narrowing for a candidate seeking to become the next leader of the Liberal Party.
Several high-profile candidates are expected to officially announce bids this week. And this weekend, several officials took their names out of the running. CTV's Colton Prale reports.
Labour Minister Steve McKinnon is the second high-profile Liberal in as many days to announce they won't run for the party leadership. McKinnon saying time constraints didn't allow him to mount the kind of campaign he wants to run. Also highlighting the need for experienced and pragmatic bilingual voices. It's part of a growing number of calls for strong bilingual candidates, including from the party's Quebec lieutenant.
It's not a matter of being perfect in every possible language. It's a matter of being able to engage with and to work with the entire country.
While Mark Carney, Chrystia Freeland, and Christy Clark all speak varying degrees of French, strategists say Anglophone Liberals typically fare worse in Quebec.
I do think a Francophone leader could easily come in a strong second to the Bloc Québécois and best the Conservatives. With an Anglophone leader, it's going to be a tougher sell.
The timing couldn't be worse for the Liberals, who are now facing a battle on two fronts in La Belle Province. Since becoming Conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre has made appearances in Quebec 19 times, including 12 rallies. Since September, the Conservatives have moved from third place in Quebec, 6 points back of the Liberals, to now 11 points ahead of them, and only trailing the Bloc Québécois.
It's a province where they could lose more than half the seats if these numbers were to hold to the next election. And so it's really concerning because the Liberal Party cannot win a national election without Quebec.
But Quebec MPs say it's policy, not language, that will decide who voters choose in the next election.
The issue right now is stewarding the economy. We have to demonstrate to Canadians that we actually offer the best program.
Colton Prail, CTV News, Ottawa.
Premiers are set to meet with the Prime Minister this week to discuss a response to the tariff threat from U.S. President-elect Donald Trump.
One premier's already met with Trump this weekend, as Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister says all options are on the table when it comes to dealing with the U.S. CTV's Jeremy Sharon reports.
It could be one of Canada's most important bargaining chips, but is the government willing to use it?
What I can tell you is everything is on the table.
Foreign Affairs Minister Mélanie Joly had that to say when asked if the government is prepared to cut off energy exports south of the border, a step the minister wouldn't rule out in the face of Trump's 25% tariff threat.
For those who are watching us right now, it is important to understand that the threat is real and we're acting on it. And that's why I'm calling every political leader in this country to be on board, because this is not time for division.
CTV News has confirmed Canadian officials are narrowing a list of American products that could be targeted with retaliatory tariffs. And Joly says diplomatic efforts with U.S. counterparts are ongoing, but this trade expert says Canada needs a measured response.
Subtle. You can't threaten, but you can certainly point out things that are obvious that might get overlooked in the rush to policy in the U.S.
In an interview with MSNBC that aired in full, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says Canada is ready to respond.
As we did last time, we are ready to respond with tariffs as necessary.
Alberta is taking their own diplomatic approach, too. Premier Danielle Smith met with Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago this weekend, where she says she had a friendly and constructive conversation, highlighted the U.S.-Canadian energy relationship and how hundreds of thousands of American jobs are supported by energy exports from Alberta. Premier Smith adding she'll do everything she can to further Alberta's and Canada's interests.
We're going to face tariffs. It's a question of how long, and Danielle Smith's doing an excellent job to make sure that period of time is as short as possible.
Jeremy Sharon, CTV News, Ottawa.
This morning, Premier Smith spoke further about her meeting with Trump at Mar-a-Lago over the weekend.
We had a friendly conversation and I thought quite constructive, during which I emphasized the mutual importance of the U.S.-Canada relationship and specifically how hundreds of thousands of jobs are supported in the United States by energy exports from Alberta. I was able to have similar discussions with members of his incoming administration, and I was encouraged to hear that they also understand how important Canada is and how our strong energy and security relationship is important.
Smith says she thinks we need to be prepared that UF tariffs are coming, and points out the biggest irritants for the Americans appear to be trade deficits they believe they have. But taking energy out of the equation, Smith says Canada actually buys more goods and services from the U.S. than we buy from it.
And looking south of the border, firefighters battling the wildfires tearing through Los Angeles County will also be dealing with the weather, as the Santa Ana winds, which first whipped up the fires into a deadly inferno, are set to return.
These winds, combined with low humidities and low fuel moistures, will keep the fire threat in all of Los Angeles County very high.
At least 24 people have died as a result of the fires, and thousands of homes have been destroyed. The Storm Prediction Center is warning of severe fire weather for today and Tuesday. Roughly 150,000 people remain under evacuation orders. And CTV's Scott Hirsch joins us now live with the very latest on the ongoing firefighting effort. What is the latest on the situation there? How bad is it?
Good afternoon, Nathan. This is a situation that could go from bad to worse. And as we've already been detailing, there is so much destruction and so much devastation, and hearing the stories of the people who've lost their homes, the stories of the people who have lost their business, there's so much heartache as well. So the next couple days are critical in this firefight, and the fear over the next couple of days, because the return of the Santa Ana winds, there is a concern about explosive growth in these fires. Now, firefighters have been able to gain some ground over the last couple of days, particularly the most significant fires, the Palisades fire and the Eaton fire. Still, a lot of work needs to be done for containment, but progress has been made over the last couple of days. But now, Monday, Tuesday into Wednesday, there is a concern about severe fire weather conditions. And so that could really lead to significant growth of these fires. And of course, that could lead to many more homes needing to be evacuated. And that means many more people affected. Already 150,000 people forced from their homes because of the fires. And many people still don't know the status of their homes or businesses, as we've been seeing much, a lot of video like this where entire neighborhoods have been razed to the ground because of these wildfires. And so the concern that it could continue to get worse over the next couple of days. 24 people have been confirmed dead, but there are still more than 16 people believed to be missing because of the fires. And so there's a lot of concern right now over the next couple of days that it could go from bad to worse, even though it has been quite severe and significant already, Nathan.
Yeah, understandable. So Canada has pledged to help. What are they doing to help out?
Well, Nathan, first let's give you an update on some of the Canadian assets that have already been there helping. We know about those 2 Quebec super scoopers that have been helping with the aerial attack. One had to be grounded last week, but we got an update today from fire officials in Los Angeles on its return to service. Let's listen in.
Our CL-415 super scooper that was damaged because of a drone incursion is reportedly going to be flying tomorrow morning. It has been repaired, and we're waiting for the FAA to give us approval to fly again.
All right, so Nathan, that's a little bit of good news on the return of that. We heard late last week that Quebec is planning to send 2 more aircraft to Southern California. We also know that there are crews on their way today from BC and Alberta. Up to 40 firefighters from Alberta, and BC is providing a senior management team from the BC Wildfire Service. It's not just Canada that is helping in this mutual aid firefight. Also crews and assets from Mexico, more than half a dozen states, and of course fire departments from around California, all converging on Southern California, all converging on Los Angeles to really make sure that they can get these fires under control, Nathan.
All right, that's the hope. CTV's Scott Hirsch with the very latest on the LA wildfires. Thank you.
Thanks, Nathan.
Turning to the Middle East, talks were held in Qatar on Sunday about a possible ceasefire and hostage deal in Gaza. In addition to Qatar, mediators from Egypt and the U.S. were also present. Today, U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan says the outgoing Biden administration thinks a possible agreement on Gaza could happen as soon as this week. However, he added there were no guarantees the parties involved would agree to a deal. Sullivan also says the Biden administration has been in contact with U.S. President-elect Trump's team about the situation.
Elsewhere in the Middle East, Canada is providing $17.25 million for humanitarian assistance to Syria. The money will be used for a number of things, including clean water and food, protection services, sanitation, and health services. The announcement came as a Canadian government delegation visited the border region of Turkey and Syria for the first time since the fall of the Bashar Assad regime. Canadian officials say the ongoing conflict in Syria has left millions of people in need of urgent aid.
Blue Origin called off the debut launch of a massive new rocket early this morning due to technical issues. The New Glenn rocket was supposed to blast off from Florida's Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. However, launch controllers had to deal with an unspecified issue in the final minutes of countdown and ran out of time. Once the countdown clock was stopped, crews began to drain fuel from the rocket. Blue Origin has not set a new launch date yet, saying its team needs more time to resolve the problem. Lindsay.
Well, here's a little bit of good news for your Monday. Our sunset time in the city of Toronto is now after 5 p.m. The days are getting gradually longer. We don't have a lot of sunshine in the forecast for today. If we're lucky, we'll get some sunny breaks this afternoon. And the temperature is going to cool down as the day goes on. Typically, we have some daytime heating in the afternoon. Not so much the case today. And the wind chill is a factor over the next couple of days. We're going to take you through everything you need to know day by day, and already looking ahead to next weekend when CTV News at noon returns.
Start of an all-new week in January, and we have snow in the mix. It felt definitely a little bit milder than it's been, but don't get used to it because we're going back into the cold.
I know. And funny, over the weekend, I saw some people wearing shorts.
What?
Yeah,
Where was that?
Just leaving the gym, heading to the car, but still they were wearing shorts.
Yeah, okay, I've been guilty of that before in the winter. I can understand for sure. Yeah, it's that time of year. Our weekend was bookended by snow. We had a couple of centimeters of fresh snow waking up on Saturday morning. We had a little bit of light snow in the GTA last night and into this morning. We're holding on to a few flurries today, and then it's true, some colder weather is going to return for the middle of this week. Weather is brought to you by the Pressler Law Firm. Injury lawyers, you don't pay unless they win. It's not overly active out there right now. You might be seeing a few flurries out your window, depending on where you're joining us from in the GTA. Here's the thing, though. We've already reached our warmest temperature for today. We're anticipating that we're going to feel a little bit colder over the coming hours and then certainly over the coming days. Because of this, you can see that area of darker blue. That's some colder Arctic air that's going to make its way toward us here in the lower Great Lakes. It already feels, for example, like minus 30 again in Red Lake. We're holding on to the seasonably mild conditions, at least for today. Seasonal norm is minus 2 degrees. That's where we're at right now. Yesterday, we were at 2 degrees on the plus side. That's going to feel like a distant memory soon. Overnight tonight, the core temperature is going to be about minus 9 degrees in Toronto. And then waking up tomorrow morning, it is going to feel like minus 16, minus 17 once you factor in those winds. And they are quite gusty today. Tomorrow, minus 6 degrees in Guelph, minus 8 for you in Welland. Hopefully some sunshine, a little more than today in places like Aurora and Burlington. But yes, the temperature once again colder than normal, minus 5 degrees in Huntsville and minus 7 for you in Uxbridge. The colder air really settles in for the middle part of this week. I'm happy to report that our roller coaster kind of continues because milder weather settles back in time for next weekend. So that's your sneak peek. We'll have more in the 7-day forecast in just a moment. Here's the satellite and radar. I talked about our flurries here locally, but I do want to mention these snow squalls that continue around the Bruce Peninsula, around Parry Sound, parts of Muskoka and areas to the north. We have snow squall warnings in place here with 3 to 5 centimeters of snow falling per hour in some of those heaviest bands. Some of this is going to taper off in some areas today, but really it's going to be a story right through until at least tomorrow afternoon. We are generally quiet here locally in the GTA. Once again, though, there still isn't a ton of ice cover on the Great Lakes, so we'll continue to see these bands, especially with westerly winds overnight tonight. Then tomorrow, again, some of that cloud cover is going to break up, a little more in the way of sun as we make our way into Wednesday. Winds, as you might be able to see there, do tend to change direction. We'll get back into more of a northerly flow. So it's cold for Tuesday, Wednesday, back to seasonal for Thursday. Friday, mild once again, and over the weekend with flurries in the forecast. Also, that's your look at the weather for now. Nathan, over to you.
All right. Thank you, Lindsay. To sports, the Raptors will be looking to avoid a 6th straight loss when they take on the Golden State Warriors tonight.
Screen set, attacking. Shot, good, soft touch.
The Raptors are coming off a 123-114 loss to the Detroit Pistons on Saturday. Tip-off for tonight's game against the Warriors is set for just after 7:30 p.m. at Scotiabank Arena.
Casey Stoney has been named the next head coach of the Canadian women's soccer team. Stoney was most recently the coach of the San Diego Wave of the National Women's Soccer League. The Canadian women's team has been without a coach since Bev Priestman was ousted as a result of the drone spying scandal during last year's Summer Games in Paris. Canada Soccer says Stoney made her debut in February at the Pinatar Cup, a 3-match series in Spain.
Still to come, scientists are offering a new theory as to how the Great Lakes may have formed. We'll have those details when we come back.
Geologists know the story of how the Great Lakes came to be, but now they say they worked out the prequel to that story. For more, we're joined by CTV's science and tech specialist, Dan Riskin, who is new for this year in studio with us, which is really exciting. Nice to be with you.
Oh, it's so exciting. I'm so excited that we finally get to be in the same room because it's nice to talk to you through the TV, but it's even better in person.
New vibe this way. So this is really interesting. What do scientists now know that they didn't know before?
Yeah, this is what happened before. So we know that the Great Lakes were caused when the glaciers receded. They kind of carved these deep valleys, and those filled with water and became the Great Lakes. And the Great Lakes, by the way, I mean, it blows the mind, but like a fifth of all the fresh water on this planet are in those 5 lakes. I mean, they're so important. They're so magical. But what this shows is that if you go back hundreds of million years before that happened, before that carving happened, those plates were sitting on top of a hot spot where bubbling magma would have weakened the ground. And as a result, when those glaciers receded, the ground was easier to carve. And that's why the Great Lakes formed there and not in other places. So it gives us a little more context.
Very nice. All right, some sports. So your kids are in sports. My son plays sports as well. We know that humans make mistakes. But a new study shows that referee bias is a problem, and hockey would be better off without referees.
Yes, so the study really quantifies how much of a problem it is. There's this weird bias that referees, if there's a red team and a blue team, they tend to favor the red team. And any Toronto fan knows that, of course. The blue always gets the short end of the stick. I'm an Oilers fan. We get the short end of the stick, too. But this comes from a whole bunch of studies of Taekwondo and wrestling and boxing. When you look at the really close games, red has a statistically significant edge, at least up until 2005. After that, they started to use a lot more methods to reduce the referee's ability to make that judgment call. And that just hasn't happened with hockey. And so I'm making the argument, based on all these other sports, that hockey should be moving as fast as possible towards a place where human referees are doing nothing more than breaking up the fights. And when it comes to whether it's offside, whether it's across the line, whether it's a high stick, that could all be automated, and it should be, because I think the game would be better without those biases in it.
Who would have thought?
But who do you yell at? Can you still yell at the robots then?
No, I don't know. I've yelled at lots of robots. I yell at my toaster, so I'm sure I could find a way to yell at that. But you do make a good point. That is part of the fun of the hockey culture, is to yell at the referee, the bad guy.
We love the refs, just
not
joking.
Not too much, though.
Right, not too much, exactly.
Right.
Okay, so finally, this is interesting. People will often go to ChatGPT to get some medical advice, but there's new research that shows why that's really dangerous. Explain to me.
This is super important, and it's a really eye-opening study. We keep hearing about how smart these ChatGPT models are, ChatGPT and other ones, where they give them a medical exam and they do just as well as a human doctor would. And you say, wow, these things could work as doctors. Hey, ChatGPT, I have a rash on my neck. Could you tell me what it is? But in this new study, instead of giving the data to the chatbots the way that they've been tested, where you see the whole medical history and you get all the information, what they did is they gave it a more realistic interaction with a patient, where the patient says, here's my problem. And then it asks a follow-up question, and asks a question and answers a question. It goes back and forth. And when you do that, it goes from 82% correct to 26% correct. So they fall right off. When they're having a realistic interaction with a patient, they're not as smart as they are when they take the exam, because they don't think. They just spit out things that sound right.
That's good to know. We got to keep that in mind, because ChatGPT is right a lot of the time. But my hubby was on there, just seeing what it said about me. It said I was 5'5".
Oh, really?
Way off.
Please.
I'm 5'11", so
I thought you were 7'11". You're very tall.
No, but you have to get reminded sometimes.
You do.
Especially with medical advice, my goodness.
Absolutely. And the thing about ChatGPT is that when it's your wheelhouse and you know how tall you are, you can tell it's wrong and it's funny. But if it's outside if you don't know different kinds of rashes, different causes of rashes, and it's going to look right. That's what these models are made to do, is to look like they're correct. So it's really dangerous with medical things.
Well, we're glad. Warning. Yeah, you're on top of it. CTV science and tech expert Dan Riskin with us in studio today. Have a great week.
You too.
Take care, Dan.
Thanks.
Well, to other news now, gamers gathered at the University of Waterloo and Conestoga College this weekend for a major esports tournament.
The invitational event was focused on competition as well as promoting inclusivity and opportunity in the gaming scene. CTV's Hannah Schmidt reports.
Esports is taking center stage in Waterloo as more than 120 collegiate athletes battle it out in a provincial invitational hosted by the University of Waterloo and Conestoga College.
It's a special event where all the teams come across and then we get to play in real life next to each other. So it's very nice. It's a new experience for sure.
The event is not only about crowning champions, it's about building a more inclusive future in gaming. The tournament features intense competition across 3 divisions, including an initiative providing opportunities for women and marginalized genders in esports.
So Conestoga is hosting Valorant Open Bracket, which is open to anybody, Valorant Game Changers Bracket, which is open to marginalized genders, and we're hosting League of Legends Open Bracket, which is open to anybody.
For female esports athletes like Emily Purdy, it's a crucial step toward leveling the playing field in an industry that's often been male-dominated.
By being a girl representing women in esports, and hopefully I can inspire other girls to play the game and maybe follow in my footsteps one day.
Organizers say the event also highlights the rapid growth of esports in the region, where universities and colleges are becoming hubs for gaming talent.
I think the stat is around over 80% of incoming first years play video games, and I think we really wanted to serve this new demographic and make sure that everybody has a way to play what they want to play.
For the athletes, it's more than just a competition. It's a chance to connect, showcase their skills, and put Waterloo on the map in the esports world.
It's just fun. It's a good way to de-stress.
It's like a completely different experience than playing online. Like you actually see your opponents, you can talk to them, you can I said good game to my opponents afterwards and I chatted with them a bit.
From fierce competition to fostering community, Tian says the event is proof that esports is here to stay and that Waterloo is becoming a key player in its rise.
We had to do this, and we wanted to be the first in Canada and hopefully inspire other organizers to continue this trend to serve these underserved players.
Hannah Schmidt, CTV News, Waterloo.
Meghan Markle is postponing the release of her new Netflix show because of the wildfires in Los Angeles.
Let's make a show. Let's go.
The premiere of With Love, Meghan was scheduled for January 15th. It has now been pushed back to early March. In a statement shared by Netflix, the Duchess of Sussex thanked the streaming platform for supporting her decision to delay the launch, saying she was focused on assisting those impacted by the wildfires in her home state.
There was a new #1 at the weekend box office.
It didn't hurt people's feelings.
They'll fit right in.
Den of Thieves 2, Pantera, debuted with $15.5 million US in ticket sales across North America. Mufasa, The Lion King, fell from the top spot but brought in another $13.2 million. And the third Sonic the Hedgehog movie held strong with $11 million for third place at the box office.
Still to come, the price of oil is on the rise as the Biden administration tightens sanctions on Russian oil exports.
Get Toronto's top stories, breaking news alerts, and watch live. Download the CTV News app.
U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's suggestion that Canada could become the 51st state prompted a wave of reaction on social media.
CTV's Kamal Karamali has more on the wide variety of responses to the incoming U.S. president.
What started off seemingly as a joke by U.S. President-elect Donald Trump,
referring to the PM online as Governor Justin Trudeau of the great state of Canada,
has now become,
sounds like we're living in an episode of South Park,
all too real. Trump with his eyes now set on Canada.
You get rid of that artificially drawn line, and you take a look at what that looks like.
As the 51st state.
No.
But online, through the tears, the jokes continue.
Canada can't become part of America. That's the country I pretend to be from when I'm traveling abroad.
This edited image of Trump shopping online in his shopping cart, Canada, Greenland, and the Panama Canal. Some Canadians jumping on board.
Then we'll become the greatest state in the world, Canada, USA.
With some conditions.
We just get to keep our healthcare system, education system, standing army, RCMP, Canadian dollar.
But many people of the provinces and territories
No!
standing firmly
The plan? Rename provinces to Trumpeter, slap his name on the CN Tower and...
against adopting the Stars and Stripes.
But Canadians, they respond politely. Sorry, but we're good, thanks.
Hey, Donald, have we got a deal for you?
Green Party leader Elizabeth May with this counteroffer.
But maybe California would like to be the 11th province. How about it? California? Oregon? Washington?
That sparked some creative content online. So, sure, it started off with a bit of humor. But when it goes from silly to serious...
We don't need to be anybody's 51st state.
Some are still choosing...
Well, welcome to the United States, Canada.
...to laugh about it. Kamala Karamali, CTV News, Toronto.
Starting today, people can expect to pay more when sending mail through Canada Post. The price of stamps has risen to $1.24. That's a 25-cent increase. The price hike was announced before the postal workers' strike, which disrupted mail service ahead of the holidays. Canada Post says it will bring in an extra $80 million this year. The Crown Corporation is still struggling to make up for the $3 billion it lost between 2018 and 2023. Oil jumped this morning as the outgoing U.S. administration tightens sanctions on Russia oil exports.
Andrew Bell of BNN Bloomberg brings us the latest in business.
Hello there. Here are your business headlines. Oil jumped to the highest in 5 months today after the U.S. imposed its most aggressive sanctions yet on Russia's crude exports. West Texas Intermediate traded above $78 U.S. a barrel. This comes just before U.S. President-elect Donald Trump takes over from the incumbent Joe Biden. And there's speculation that Trump may in turn go after Iran's oil, further cutting global supplies. Shares in Enbridge traded near the highest since 2015. The company plans to boost capacity on its U.S. oil pipeline system rapidly if the incoming Trump administration succeeds in kicking off a U.S. drilling boom. Enbridge delivers almost 6 million barrels of crude and liquids a day across North America. And finally, U.S. tech stocks dipped again in morning trading as hopes for interest rate cuts fade. Rising oil stocks boosted Toronto's benchmark index. However, the composite was down overall, dragged down by tech heavyweight Shopify. That's the latest in business. I'm Andrew Bell of BNN Bloomberg.
Coming up, enjoying the remnants of the holiday season. Goats across the country are chowing down on discarded Christmas trees. Most people will put their Christmas decorations away by now, but there are some who are still enjoying a piece of the holiday season.
You could say that. Farmers across the country are accepting discarded trees, which they're serving up as a tasty treat to goats. CTV's Sarah Plowman reports.
Long after the Christmas feast, these guys are just getting started. A buffet of branches, the gift of greens, Christmas castaways with a new purpose.
So the trees are important because they're really good for their digestion. They are also a natural dewormer. They also enjoy the flavor of it. They're sweet to them. That's why, as you saw, they go crazy over them. Those are the boys. We also have the girls over here. They're hiding out right now because they're a little more dainty.
At farms and zoos across the country, trees that lit up living rooms are now lunch for goats.
They do like the fresh needles, right? But they will clean them right up. It's usually like a toothpick.
For some, dropping them off has become a bit of a post-holiday tradition.
Helps with the recycling of the tree, so no scraps goes to waste, which is wonderful, and that the kids actually get to see the goats and the donkeys and all the animals kind of rejoice that it's the second life for their Christmas tree, which is really lovely to see.
A sweet sample of sap they love the flavor.
They strip them right down, so people will think that they only need to bring us the limbs of the trees. The bark's actually just as important as the needles in their digestion. They strip them right down to the bare wood.
In Winnipeg, it's no different.
Yeah, this is yours.
A tree treat for goats whose milk is used to make soap.
In the middle of winter, when they don't have too many fresh green things, they love the taste of the needles.
Sustainable and satisfying. A win-win for these kids after Christmas. Sarah Plowman, CTV News, Fredericton.
All right, easy goats, plenty of trees to go around.
Exactly. Well, they
Great
smell
story.
so good, those trees, and who knew they tasted good if you're a goat? Yeah. They look really cold there, and it's going to get colder here.
It is. So we'll accept our afternoon temperature, which is going to get a little bit colder as it goes on, but we had a mild weekend, so we're still on the heels of that somewhat. Let's take a look at the ski conditions across Ontario, because yes, another round of natural snow contributing to, well, the really great base happening in Ontario ski country. It's going to be another great week to get out there. However, it is windy today. It will be windy tonight, and those winds are going to make it feel like minus 16 at the coldest point of the night and into tomorrow morning. I'm going to say it again, bundle up as you head off to work, as the kids venture off to the bus stop or to school. Very chilly. We will have some sun tomorrow. That's something to look forward to, perhaps even more into the day on Wednesday. A few flurries as we head toward the second half of this work and school week. And guess what? It's going to be mild once again for the start of the weekend. Long range after that shows another cool down, if you can believe it or not, Nathan and Michelle. But this is the kind of weather we expect this time of year. I'll send it back to you.
Some big changes. Thank you, Lindsay. And that is it for CTV News at noon. Remember, you can get Toronto's breaking news all day long on CP24 and at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Lindsay Morrison and all of us here, have a pleasant afternoon. I'm Michelle Dubé.
And I'm Nathan Downer. Be sure to join us later for CTV News at 5 and 6. Have a great afternoon.